We live in an age where everyone is desperate to be noticed. Social media is overflowing with arguments, over-explanations, and endless attempts to prove a point. People hustle for validation, fight for attention, and lose themselves in the noise. But the Stoic way reveals something different. Strength doesn't always shout, it steps back, it watches, it remains steady. Silence, when chosen with discipline, is not weakness. It is power. It is clarity. It is respect for yourself in its purest form. In a society addicted to noise, silence is rebellion. In relationships, silence uncovers truth. In personal growth, silence opens the doorway to wisdom. Your silence speaks louder than any response. This passage explores the philosophy of silence, structured as an introduction, 10 supporting points, and a closing message that ties it all together. It's not a comforting fairy tale, it's raw, realistic, and a wake-up call that cuts through illusions. 1. Silence makes your absence louder than your words. When you choose silence over argument, you create a void that cannot be ignored. People expect noise, explanations, anger, or pleading. When it doesn't come, the weight of your absence becomes far more powerful than any words you could have spoken. Your silence forces others to face themselves without your interference. It shifts the energy from you trying to prove yourself, to them realizing what they've lost. Silence is not retreat, it's strategy. It demands respect without demanding attention. When you walk away without a sound, you leave behind an echo that lingers far longer than raised voices ever could. He who cannot read your silence will never understand your words. 2. Silence clears the way to hear your inner truth. Noise from the world, opinions, gossip, and endless scrolling buries the voice that matters most, your own. By stepping back, you make space for clarity to emerge. Silence isn't passive, it's a deliberate pause that lets you hear what's real. Within that stillness, uncomfortable but necessary truths surface, that someone didn't value you, that you clung too long, that peace matters more than answers. Instead of being consumed by external chaos, silence allows you to center yourself. It becomes a compass guiding you back to what matters. In silence, the fog clears, and what remains is undeniable truth. If you are troubled by something outside yourself, it's not the thing but your judgment of it that causes the pain. 3. Chasing closure is betraying yourself. We think closure comes from others, but in reality, it begins within. Begging for closure is asking the person who hurt you to set you free. That's not closure, that's dependency. Real closure comes the moment you accept the truth and step forward without needing validation. Silence is closure in action. It shows you stopped waiting for explanations that may never arrive. By refusing to chase, you reclaim control over your story. It's not about bitterness, it's about choosing dignity. Silence says, I no longer need you to explain why you failed me. I already understand my worth. Don't preach your beliefs, live them. 4. Silence uncovers what words try to mask. Words are slippery, they can be twisted into excuses, apologies, or manipulations. People use language to disguise intentions. But silence exposes what can't be hidden. When you no longer explain yourself, you see patterns unfold. You notice who sticks around when you stop feeding them attention, and who vanishes once they lose control of you. Silence forces people to reveal their true nature. It clears away illusions and exposes reality with brutal honesty. Unlike words, silence doesn't deceive. It strips everything down to truth, making it impossible for others to hide behind sweet talk or empty promises. Actions scream louder than words. 5. Refusing to explain yourself is confidence in its purest form. Insecurity needs validation. Confidence does not. The urge to explain yourself to everyone comes from fear of being misunderstood. But people who are committed to misunderstanding you will twist your words anyway. Refusing to justify yourself is power. It says, I know my worth, whether you see it or not. Real strength lies in walking away without defending your choices. It's a quiet declaration that your value is not up for debate. You don't need to waste energy on distorted perceptions. When you remain silent, you prove that your identity stands solid without anyone's approval. Life is too short to spend explaining yourself to those unworthy of your truth. 6. Silence teaches lessons that words never could. No lecture or argument changes people. But silence does what words cannot. When you leave quietly, without drama, without shouting, you deliver a message that cuts deeper than any speech. Absence becomes the teacher. They expected anger or begging, but silence confronts them with emptiness they can't escape. Silence becomes their reflection, forcing them to face what they've done. It teaches without noise, without effort, simply by being. This lesson lingers, because silence can't be debated. It cannot be twisted or ignored. It simply exists, demanding acknowledgement in ways arguments never could. We suffer more in our minds than in reality. 7. Silence preserves your energy. Arguing, defending, or begging all drain your spirit. They pull you into endless cycles of struggle, leaving you exhausted and depleted. Silence interrupts that cycle. It protects your energy, refusing to let others feed off your emotions. Choosing silence doesn't mean surrender, it means protecting your peace. You no longer waste your strength on proving what should be obvious. Instead, you redirect energy into yourself, into growth, healing, and building the life you deserve. Silence becomes a shield, an invisible boundary that guards your soul against chaos. It's the choice to prioritize yourself above meaningless noise. Where you place attention, energy flows. Don't spend it carelessly. 8. Silence shows who truly values you. When you fall silent, people reveal themselves. The ones who care won't need constant words to feel your worth. They will notice your quiet and step closer with effort. The ones who used you will disappear the moment you stop feeding them. Silence separates the genuine from the opportunists. It unmasks hidden motives and shows who truly belongs in your life. Words can hide intentions, but silence draws out the truth. If someone fades when you stop chasing, that's your answer. Silence spares you the disappointment of finding out too late. It shows you who's real now. In silence, masks crumble. 9. Silence strengthens your self-worth. Each time you choose silence over chasing, you affirm your value. Every quiet step away from conflict is a reminder that you don't need noise to prove your worth. Silence builds dignity like nothing else. It shifts your focus from trying to be seen to recognizing that you already matter. Silence is not retreat, it's reinforcement of who you are. It teaches you to trust yourself enough to not demand validation. It proves that your respect for yourself outweighs the need to be understood by others. That is strength in its truest, most powerful form. Value yourself enough to walk away in silence. 10. Silence is the voice of true power. The strongest people in history didn't waste energy trying to convince everyone. They embodied their truth and let actions speak. Silence is the weapon of the powerful. It unnerves manipulators because they lose their grip when you stop reacting. Refusing to argue is not weakness, it's mastery. When you choose silence, you're saying, I am not controlled by you. I own myself. That is terrifying to those who thrive on control. Silence is the language of leaders, the language of people who no longer beg to be seen, because they already see themselves clearly. Silence isn't emptiness, it's control. Final note: silence isn't about coldness or detachment from feeling. It's about wisdom, the understanding that not everything deserves your response, not everyone deserves your time, and not every battle requires your voice. In a world obsessed with noise, silence is rebellion. In relationships clouded by manipulation, silence is truth. In personal growth, silence is strength. Let your silence be your final statement. Not out of arrogance. Not out of bitterness, but out of deep, unwavering respect for yourself. Because the loudest voice in the room isn't the strongest, the one who no longer needs to speak is. My silence is my strength.